first, this survey from a few months ago that I didn't see until yesterday. It's called Accelerating Acceptance. It's an annual report, a large public opinion survey commissioned by GLAAD and conducted by a reputable polling firm called Harris. The title, Accelerating Acceptance, pretty self-explanatory. They want to accelerate the acceptance of gay rights. So they ask questions that I think are interesting. I think they ask non-gay people, for example, if they'd be comfortable or uncomfortable in certain situations having someone gay at your church, seeing gay wedding pictures, learning a family member is gay. Those are good questions, interesting questions. You can see the issue gets the most pushback is learning my child has a lesson on LGBT history in school. You can see 39% of people would be uncomfortable with that. Now, what does that mean? How old is the child at school? Is it a child of tender years, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2? Or a child in high school, 16, 17, 18? Would it be a genuine neutral history? Here's what happened, here's what happened. Or an advocacy style history? I think those are important details, don't you? And I'm not surprised that 39% of people are wary. And in fact, I bet the concern is actually higher, but people are shy about telling a pollster something they know is contrary to the fashion. All across Canada and the United States, there is a new fashion of having something called transvestite or drag queen story time in schools and libraries with children of very tender years, very young kids. Is that what they mean by that question? Or is it a high school class for 18-year-olds? I see why some people are nervous. I think most people can be woke about what grown-ups discuss, but those same people could be against the early sexualization of young people talking about sex, either straight or gay. Just leave the kids alone. I think that is the source of so much opposition to sex ed curriculums these days. Leftists have been pushing. Partly it's the junk science. I mean, like the Ontario government's position that there are 6 genders. Can you name them? By the way, being gay isn't a gender. Can you name the 6 genders? I bet you can't. It's not even science, that's junk science. But also, why are you talking to grade 1 kids about sexual things? They're in grade 1. That's how early Ontario sex ed started. That's a fact. But here's what's interesting. Here's what's new, or at least what was new to me. Look at the number of millennials who describe themselves as LGBT allies. That's the phrase that's in popular use. So just to explain these charts, you can see there's 3 bars together. The top very dark line is 2016. The middle line is 2017. And the bottom line in each case, in light blue, is 2018. So look at that. The number of 18 to 34-year-olds, those are millennials, who are allies. So start at the top. In 2016, 63% of millennials said, I'm an LGBT ally. Now it's 45%. That's a plunge. It was almost 2/3, now it's not even half. It's fallen for young millennial women from 65% to 52%, and for young men, it's almost fallen in half, from 62% of young men in 2016 to 40% the next year to just 35% now. That is almost falling in half. What's going on? I mean, I'm curious, I'm surprised. See, support for LGBT hasn't plunged like this for all groups. It's just young people. Middle-aged people, senior citizens, they haven't suddenly fallen out with LGBT politics. Senior citizens, who you might think would be less pro-LGBT because they were born and raised in a more traditional era, their support hasn't fallen in half. What's going on? Why do millennials support LGBT rights less than their own grandparents? Well, here's what the president of GLAAD says. With the knowledge that erosion in acceptance was primarily happening among younger males, GLAAD launched a program dedicated to working with the video game industry on LGBTQ inclusion to bring LGBTQ characters and stories to a world where male audiences were consuming content. Really? So you think it's video games. You're seriously blaming video games. which apparently were only invented in 2017 or something. I tell you what, that's not going to make young men more pro-LGBTQ. It'll probably make them less so. Imagine having political lecturing imposed on your video games. Video games. I don't play video games, but I'm pretty sure that people who do, they do so for escaping from the BS of our real world. To get away from politics, imagine trying to inject woke politics into video games. It's the reason why Star Wars movies have done so poorly lately. Stop being woke. Here's more. We have taken that idea for granted, and this year's results show that the sharp and quick rise in divisive rhetoric in politics and culture is having a negative influence on younger Americans. That's their way of blaming Trump. In fact, GLAAD has a whole campaign to demonize Trump. If you look here, they say hundreds of anti-gay incidents have happened on Trump's watch. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.